In 1921, a stonemason on Mulberry Street earned $22 a week. His name was Salvatore. He fed 9 children in 2 rented rooms in Lower Manhattan. Every Friday, he sent $4 to his mother in Avellino, and he never missed. His children never missed a meal, and he never once understood how. His wife did. She ran a second household economy he could not see, feeding 11 people on money he believed was already gone. Every wife on the block ran the same hidden system. The husbands called it luck. It was a method nobody was supposed to write down. They did not call it budgeting. They called it keeping the family whole. Every cent had a job before it was earned. Nothing was wasted, because waste was the one luxury a tenement could not afford. These women fed armies on a laborer's wage and let the world believe it was easy. We inherited their recipes and lost their arithmetic. Somewhere between their kitchens and ours, we decided feeding a family should be fast, simple, and expensive. We called that progress. Number 18 on this list cost the family nothing at all, and her children ate it gladly while the neighbors threw the very same thing into the gutter. Number 14 fed a household for a full week when the cupboard was bare and payday was still days away, and it never charged a cent of interest. And number 1, the rule these mothers guarded more fiercely than any family secret, is the same principle financial planners now charge $200 an hour to teach. Except she did it on a single laborer's wage and told no one. These 25 tricks were not about being poor. They were about refusing to let poverty win. They were the difference between a family that rose in one generation and one that never climbed out. Quiet women doing impossible math where no one could see it. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 25 secret money tricks Italian immigrant mothers used to feed big families on a single paycheck. Number 25, the stale bread. The loaf that was never once thrown away. Yesterday's bread did not become garbage. It became dinner. Hard crusts were soaked in oil for panzanella. Drier pieces were grated into crumbs that stretched the meatballs. The hardest heels thickened the soup pot. A 5-cent loaf did the work of 3. For a mother feeding 9, throwing away bread was close to a sin. Bread had been scarce in the old country. Her hands would not release it. In Naples and Sicily, Cucina Povera had taught this for centuries. The bread did not go stale. It went further. Number 24, the basement wine, the cellar that replaced the saloon. In autumn, the men bought grapes by the crate from the rail yard. The family crushed and pressed them in the tenement cellar. By winter, barrels of rough red wine lined the wall. A glass at dinner cost almost nothing. A bottle at the tavern cost 20 cents. The family kept that money instead. Wine was not a luxury here. It was food, medicine, and the dignity of a proper table. A man who poured his own was still a man with something to offer. Whole blocks of Little Italy made wine each fall. They did not buy the bottle. They grew it in a barrel underground. Number 23, the forgotten cuts. The meat the butcher nearly gave away. While Americans bought the steak, she bought what they left behind. Tripe, oxtail, pig's feet, the neck, the shank. A few cents a pound for what others discarded. Slow cooked for hours with tomato and herbs, it fed the whole table richly. She knew these cuts from a hungry childhood. What looked like poverty food to a neighbor was a feast she knew how to build. The butcher saved the scraps for her by name. Cheap cuts and offal were the backbone of Southern Italian cooking. The rich ate the muscle. She fed 9 on everything else. Number 22, the tenement garden. The garden in the dirt. The farm that grew in a city with no land. Every scrap of soil became a garden, a backyard, a rooftop, a box on a fire escape. tomatoes, basil, escarole, peppers, beans. A few families kept a fig tree wrapped in tar paper all winter. A nickel of seed fed the summer table. A woman from a farming village could not live without growing something. The garden was a piece of home she could hold. It also cut the grocery bill in half from June to October. Italian immigrants were famous for gardens in impossible places. Even on rooftops landlords thought useless. She had no land. She grew a farm anyway. Number 21, the end-of-day cart. The bargain that came when the pushcarts closed. The peddlers on Mulberry Street sold until dark. At closing, the bruised and the soft went cheap because none of it would keep overnight. She arrived late on purpose. A basket of soft tomatoes cost a nickel instead of a quarter. A soft tomato was a perfect tomato to a woman making sauce. The bruise cooked away. The savings did not. The pushcart economy ruled Lower Manhattan before the supermarket. Others bought it fresh. She bought it last and cheaper. Number 20, the homemade pasta. The dinner made from flour and water alone. A box of dried pasta cost money. A pound of flour cost a few cents. She mixed flour with water or an egg, rolled it thin, and cut it by hand. Orecchiette, cavatelli, wide noodles for Sunday. Pennies of flour became pounds of pasta. The children helped roll and cut after supper. It was work, but it was the family together at the table. The labor was free. The meal was endless. Every southern Italian household made pasta by hand, a skill that crossed the ocean intact. She did not buy the noodle. She made it appear from dust. Number 19, la conserva. The summer she sealed in jars for the winter. In late August, a bushel of tomatoes sold for 50 cents. She bought them by the dozen bushels. The family spent days cooking, milling, and sealing them into glass jars. By September, the shelves held 100 jars of sauce. The winter sauce was paid for at August prices. While neighbors paid triple in January, her cellar was full. The work was brutal in the August heat. The reward arrived every cold month after. Canning was a sacred late summer ritual in Italian neighborhoods. She did not buy winter sauce. She bottled the summer sun. Number 18, the foraged greens. The free vegetable growing along the road. Dandelion, chicory, wild fennel. She knew them all. On a Sunday walk, she filled an apron with greens from vacant lots and park edges. Sauted with garlic and a little oil, they cost nothing and fed everyone. To an American, these were weeds. To a woman raised in the southern hills, they were dinner and medicine. She fed her children from ground. Everyone else walked past. Foraging was an old peasant skill the immigrants never abandoned. Cicoria grew free in the gaps of the city. The weeds were free. She knew which ones were food. Number 17, the Sunday sugo, the one pot that fed the entire week. On Sunday, she started a great pot of sauce at dawn. Into it went a quarter's worth of sausage, a tough cut, and meatballs stretched with bread. It simmered for hours. That single pot dressed the pasta on Sunday, flavored the beans on Monday, and topped bread for days. The Sunday table looked like abundance. The whole family gathered, and the smell filled the building. Few knew the same pot fed them until Thursday. The Sunday gravy was the heart of Italian-American life, one pot anchoring a week of meals. It looked like a feast. It was a week of dinners in disguise. Here is something the history books leave out. In recent years, economists studied how immigrant households of the early 1900s survived on wages that should have failed them. They expected debt and hunger. They found the opposite. Italian families on some of the lowest wages in the city saved at higher rates than native-born families earning far more. The wages made it impossible on paper. The savings happened anyway. The explanation was not income, it was method. These families turned a single laborer's pay into food, rent, savings, and money sent home all at once. The mothers managed it without bank accounts and often without English. They were not surviving the wage. They were defeating it. 16. The border. Number 16. The border. The second income that slept in the corner. Space was the family's only spare asset. A single man, newly off the boat, needed a bed. She rented him a corner, a cot, and a seat at the table for $3 a week. He ate what the family ate. His rent often covered the family's own. He was usually a paesano, sometimes a cousin, treated like family. The arrangement was not cold business. His $3 kept the whole household afloat. Taking in boarders was nearly universal in immigrant tenements. They had no spare space. They rented it anyway. Number 15. The piecework, the factory that ran on the kitchen table. After the children slept, the second shift began. Garment makers sent home bundles of unfinished clothing. She sewed buttons and finished hems for pennies apiece. A long night brought in $1. That dollar bought a week of bread. It was grinding, eye-straining work done by lamplight. She did it every night, so the food money never had to stretch alone. The children grew up to the sound of her needle. Home piecework filled the tenements of the garment district. The factory paid her by the button. She paid the grocer by the loaf. Number 14. The grocer's book, the credit that fed the family between paydays. The Italian grocer kept a small ledger, il libretto, for each family. She bought flour, oil, and beans on credit through the lean days. On payday, she walked in and paid it down. A week of food cost under $1, carried until the wage arrived. The grocer was a paesano, not a corporation. He trusted her because she always came. The book was held together by honor, not interest. Neighborhood grocers ran on credit ledgers across Little Italy, where trust was the only collateral. The book carried the family. Her word carried the book. Number 13. The society dues, the only insurance a poor family could buy. For a nickel a week, the family belonged to a Società di Mutuo Soccorso, a mutual aid society. If the breadwinner fell sick or died, the society paid the doctor, the funeral, or the rent. It was insurance built by immigrants who could buy no other kind. She paid the dues before almost anything else. A nickel a week stood between the family and disaster. When a man on the block died, his children did not starve. Hundreds of these societies were the safety net before the government built one. A few cents a week, a wall against the worst week. Number 12. The bulk tin. The staples bought once and stored for months. Olive oil came in a 5-gallon tin, not a small bottle. Flour came in the largest sack. Beans and chickpeas were bought by the pound. The tin cost $3 once and lasted half a year. The small bottle cost more by the month. She bought the way a farmer buys, in quantity for the season. A full pantry was security she could see. The cellar tin meant the family ate well for months. Bulk buying defined the immigrant pantry. The bottle was for the rich. The tin was for the family. Number 11. The one good suit, the patched clothes nobody outside ever saw. The father owned one good suit for church, kept perfect for the public eye. At home and at work, every garment was patched, turned, and mended. A $2 pair of trousers lasted years under her needle. The outside world saw a family that looked respectable. La bella figura The good appearance was sacred. What it cost in quiet mending stayed inside the apartment. Keeping up appearances on almost nothing was a southern Italian art. The world saw the good suit. It never saw the thread. Number 10. The Kumare network. The child care and cooking no one was billed for. 10. The Kumare network. The women of the block raised the children together. A Kumare, a godmother, watched the little ones while their mother took in piecework. The favor came back as a pot of soup or a day of sewing. No money changed hands. The street shared the load. A mother of 9 could not do it alone and never had to. The courtyard was full of mothers doing the same math. They paid each other in time, which neither could spare and both gave. This female mutual aid held immigrant neighborhoods together. No one was paid. Everyone was covered. Number 9. The dowry chest. The savings that began the day a daughter was born. From a girl's birth, the mother set aside for la dot, the dowry. Embroidered linens, a little cash, a few coins at a time over many years. By the time the daughter married, a chest of hand-sewn goods and saved money waited. It cost almost nothing in any single week. It was love measured in patience. A penny here, an evening of embroidery there, stretched across 20 years. The daughter began her marriage with something because her mother began saving before she could walk. The dowry tradition crossed the ocean and adapted to American coins. It started at a birth. It finished at an altar. Here is what the monuments never mention. The woman who ran this economy often could not read the language on the coins. She could not vote. She could not, in most banks, hold an account in her own name. The law saw her as a foreigner and a dependent at once. The law gave her nothing. The kitchen gave her everything. She managed a budget she did not legally control, in a tongue she was still learning, for a family the city would rather not see. And she won. She turned the lowest wages in New York into homes, weddings, and children who became doctors and teachers. We built statues to the men who dug the subways. We forgot the women who fed them. 8. The second life of everything. Number 8. The second life of everything. The tin and the sack that never became trash. Nothing left the apartment as garbage if it could work again. The lard tin became a planter for Basil. The flour sack became a dish towel or a child's slip. Glass jars became cups. A coffee can became where she kept her folded bills. Throwing away a usable thing felt like waste. Her hands rejected. Every reused object was a few cents not spent at a store. The habit was so deep the children carried it for life. Reuse was a moral law in immigrant homes, burned in by poverty in the old country. Nothing was trash. Everything was waiting for its next job. Number 7. The money home. The reserve she kept even while sending it away. Every week, $4 crossed the ocean to family in Italy. It was duty and love, and it never stopped. But she did not send the last dollar. From the same pay, she fed a small reserve at home, coins in the coffee can, set aside before the envelope was sealed. She honored the old country and protected the new one at once. The family in Avellino ate because of her. So did the family in the next room. Remittances sent millions back to Italy each year, and the wise ones held a little back. She sent money across the sea. She kept a little on this side. Number 6. The miles on foot, the nickel fare she refused to pay. The trolley and subway cost a nickel each way. For a family always on the move, those nickels added up. So she walked. To the market, to church, to the work site with her husband's lunch. Miles a day in all weather to keep the fares in the can. A nickel saved was bread earned, and she counted in bread. The walking was hard on her feet and harder in winter. She never complained because the saved fare fed a child. Walking was how the poor moved before cars. The ride cost a nickel. She paid in shoe leather instead. Number 5. The home remedy. The doctor's bill that rarely arrived. A doctor's visit cost $2 or $3, a fortune the family rarely had. For a fever or a cough, she reached first for the cupboard. Garlic, honey, broth, a mustard plaster, a long night of watching. She knew when a thing was minor and when it was dangerous. She spent on a doctor only when the danger was real, and then without hesitation. The children believed they were simply healthy. They were also being nursed by a woman who saved a fortune in office calls. Folk medicine traveled with the immigrants from the southern villages. She called the doctor only when she had to. She always knew when. Number 4. The Sunday meat. The small roast that fed the whole table. On a good week there was meat. A 50-cent cut, never enough on its own. She sliced it paper thin against the grain and buried it among the pasta, beans, and bread. A piece that should have fed 4 somehow circled the table for 12. The father carved with pride at the head of the table. He believed he had provided a real meal, and in a way he had. The smallness of the cut was her secret, and she let him keep his. Stretching a little meat across many mouths was a peasant art. He thought it was a generous cut. It was a generous talent. Number 3. The first cut. 3. The first cut. The first cut. The money divided before it reached the table. On the weeks she handled the pay, she divided it before she came home. $2 to rent, $1 to the grocer's book, a nickel to the society, a coin to the can. Each took its share at the corner before $1 touched the kitchen. The saving happened first, off the top, invisibly. By the time the household counted what was there, the future was already protected. The most important payment of the week had already been made, and no one had seen it. Dividing the wage before spending it ran through every immigrant block. The money was spoken for before anyone could speak for it. Number 2. The quiet gap. Spending below what everyone believed she spent. She let the family and neighbors think the household cost more than it did. She never bragged about how little they truly needed. The world assumed they lived at the edge of the wage. In truth, she ran the family far below that edge. The gap between what people imagined and what she spent was the family's slow fortune. A few dollars held back each week became $100 a year. That margin, invisible to everyone, became a home. Holding a reserve below your apparent means built immigrant wealth in one generation. They thought she spent it all. The difference built everything. Number 1. Pane e companatico. Bread and one thing. The whole philosophy in 3 words. It was the rule beneath every other rule. A meal was bread and one companion to it, a little cheese, a few greens, an egg, a smear of sauce, a 5-cent loaf, and a few cents beside it. Never the bread alone, and never bread with 3 rich things. Bread and one thing. That was enough. There was no system and no secret account, just the brutal, unfashionable discipline of wanting only what the wage could carry. It was taught at every table without a word of explanation. The phrase is older than the immigration itself, carried from southern Italy, unchanged. Not what you crave, what the bread can carry. None of these tricks required money these mothers did not already hold. They required attention. They required a woman willing to look at an impossible wage and refuse to be beaten by it. The husbands were not villains. They were good men who broke their bodies in ditches and on scaffolds for wages that never quite reached, but the paycheck was only half the system. The other half lived in a coffee can in the flour bin, in a garden on a fire escape, in a pot of sauce that fed a week. We remember the immigrant story as a story of men, the laborer with the shovel and the pick. We forget the woman who turned his wage into a family that rose. She fed 11 on the money for 4. She did it in a language she barely spoke, in a country that barely saw her. It was never luck, it was her, and we have spent 100 years forgetting her name.